Councillors and officers, welcome to the Licensing Protection Committee meeting this afternoon, 16th of October 2024. Reminder that we are being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. A reminder also that because we don't have desk microphones in this room, please keep your voices to a reasonable level so that you can be picked up by the audio. Thank you. Starting with apologies for absence, please.
We've got apologies from Councillors Costello and Butel.
Thank you. Minutes. To prove as a correct record the minutes of the meetings held on the 15th and the 22nd of May 2024 and the extraordinary meeting held on the 27th of June 2024. You're all happy for these minutes to be signed as a correct record?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, members' interests. To receive from members declarations as to the disclosable, pecuniary, or registrable and non-registrable interests in relation to any agenda item. Do we have any member interests to declare this afternoon? No interest? Thank you. We move on then to item 3, which is the public space protection order for Ramsey, pages 21 to 54. Your agenda packs. Consider a report seeking approval for a public spaces protection order in response to increasing incidents of antisocial behaviour on Ramsey Great Whites. Georgia, could you introduce the score, please?
Ashley's going to read the first part of the report and then I'll give you the consultation results after.
Thank you.
George has done all the hard work for I'll just do the presentation of the main point. Yeah, so this is but there's been an amendment, hasn't it? The recommendations that were who put in there the length of the order.
Yeah, we were just going to propose an amendment to the recommendations to specify that the order would be for 3 years in accordance with the legislation. So that we can discuss that when we get to the recommendations.
So the public space protection order for Ramsey is to cover the issues that's been faced in the area for quite a while. You have a core group of individuals who have been causing antisocial behaviour on Great Whites, mostly through street drinking. The behaviour is predominantly occurring in the relatively new and garden area of the Great Whites opposite the library. Over the past few years, it's become increasingly frequent, resulting in quite a lot of reports from members of the public. The police have, alongside HDC, have done targeted enforcement against certain individuals at the location, but the problem persists, quite frankly, because the behaviours tend to generate relatively low-level punishments, and that results in them just coming back to the area and behaviours continuing. So the behaviours that have been highlighted have been public intoxication, substance misuse, public urination, and intimidating behaviour. The consultation that we went through got 328 results. If you can remember back to the similar proposal we had for the Amesbury one, that's significantly more response than we had then. So that just shows how much the public really care about it. And of the 328 responses, 318 were in full agreement with it. Georgia will give a bit of a summary of the consultation later on. So the recommendation is to approve the proposed PSP for Ramsey, consider and approve the proposed boundary of the order, which is seen in Appendix A, quite a large area. Consider and approve the proposed prohibitions, which is in Appendix B, and to delegate authority to the community services managers to make minor amendments or variations to the conditions and scope of the PSPO. And then a fifth recommendation for the PSPO to last for the usual term of 3 years, with the to extend it for we see fit after consultation at the 3-year mark. To give you a bit of a background, Georgia did some data recording for past financial year. Between February and August, the police received 32 reports of incidents at that specific location related to street drinking. In that same period, our own officers at HDC received 5 reports for the same issues. And the reporting is slightly different. So the police would receive reports on individual incidents occurring, whereas we receive reports of more general themes of the issues. So within those reports was a lot of back and forth communication. Then the Town Council themselves also received reports that themselves, they recorded 17 incidents in that same period. Of those 17, 14 related to the street drinkers. So the proposed prohibitions are no open vessels and or land described in the PSPO, no personal use of narcotic substances within the area of the PSPO, and no public urination or defecation, and no intimidating behaviour, which has been categorised as aggressively shouting at any person, any offensive language, physical altercations, excessive noise, and behaviours that cause alarm and distress to residents and business owners or visitors. The PSPO will be enforced jointly by police and HDC, the community action team at HDC and the neighbourhood policing team from the police. The police have already given their assurance that they will prioritise the enforcement of the order once put in place. And especially for the first month, they're going to do that through regular patrolling, proactive enforcement rather than reactive. Our team in the community action team will then support the police through reactive enforcement. So what that would practically look like is the police going out regularly to patrol and to disperse and to report to people for breaches of the public space protection orders of crime. And then our community action officers will support by receiving reports of breaches of the order and then taking enforcement action retrospectively through either issuing fixed penalty notices or through prosecuting. The fixed penalty notice for breach of public space protection order is currently set at £100 with a maximum of a £2,500 court fine if prosecuted. So the options that have been considered on lead up to the public space protection order has been the PSPO itself, which is the current favoured option for responding to the issues. The other one, option 2, was considering what we would call designing out crime. What that would look at is making the location itself undesirable for the offenders. That's a really tricky thing to do, though, particularly in somewhere like Ramsey. For instance, that particular area has been made quite attractive to pedestrians through the benches and the flower beds. And it would be a real shame to remove that because there's a small handful of people who are misusing that space. Because in theory, if we could enforce it through other methods, then that space could be enjoyed for what it was supposed to be for, which is shoppers and visitors to Ramsey using it for legal social reasons. And then the final option is direct enforcement, which would be stuff like issuing use of section warnings and then escalating up to notice for the lower level behaviours or for arrests, essentially. That's what we have been trying to date, but to little success, which is why we've escalated things to a public spaces protection order. The risks are outlined in the report. Mostly the risks are the order being put in place and not being affected by changing the behaviours either, which is a risk we'd always face with a public space protection order. I think later on in this meeting, you'll see that the PSPO has been quite successful at Amesbury, which I think has been picked up by the police as a good model for why this might be successful. The timetable for implementation, we're here today on the 16th of October for the MP. We'd look to put this in place pretty much immediately. So after today, if the Privacy and Protection Committee agree to the recommendations, we'll publish the consultation results today and then look to have it signed off by legal and chief exec and move to implement it at the earliest opportunity that gets finished. The consultation was run between the 9th of September to the 23rd of September, as I said earlier, 328 responses to the main conditions of supporting it. 301 strongly agreed, 17 agreed, and 7 respondents were neutral. And 1 person disagreed, and two people strongly disagreed with the order. George will go into a little bit more details on those results in a second, though. The legal implications in the report sets out essentially the legislation for antisocial behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2014. I won't go into the specifics there, but if you wanted to review over that, it basically outlines the statutory duties for it. Resource implication was briefly covered earlier. The enforcement will be predominantly done proactively by the police, who have committed to enforce it proactively through patrolling. It should be noted that it was really the police who have asked for this. So on that basis, and the basis that it has support from the Chief Constable and the Police and Crime Commissioner, suggests that they are taking it seriously and would take that seriously and proactively enforce. There will be some resource implication on HDC through the Community Action Team, who will pick up reports of breaches of public space protection order retrospectively, and utilising the resource within HDC's CCTV department to support with evidence. There is a CCTV camera that is already in place, unlike other PSPOs, so that's good. We don't have to pay for that as an additional resource, it's already there, and we will use that resource to identify any breaches. There will then be regular review meetings between the police and Huntingdonshire District Council through the problem solving groups, where there will be regular updates on the effectiveness of the order that's held monthly. So the appendices is Appendix A is the proposed location, which, as you can see, is the B1040, which is the main road going through the Brampton High Street, essentially, which incorporates Great White, northwest and southwest between the roundabouts connecting Stocking, Fen Road and the junction of High Street. A new road from Great White, including Newton Green, used close in any linking roads from the Great White, and used close cover. The main reason for those areas is that that's been informed by police and local authority data on where the reported issues are occurring, but also some preemptive thinking around where some of the pavements might be displaced if we were to start correctively enforcing it. Of course, that location could be changed down the line if the recommendation for the community services manager to be able to amend it is approved, because if we do find that they are being displaced to another nearby location, then through the community safety manager's approval, we could extend the location to cover those areas as well within the 3-year period. And then Appendix B goes through the conditions in a little bit more detail, but I've already given that summary. And then Appendix C is the full list of consultation. So I'll hand over to Georgia to give a bit more of a summary on the consultation, and then I'll any questions.
So, as Ash mentioned, we had 228 responses to our public consultation. Most of those were Ramsey residents with 277 responses. Others included business owners, those who work in Ramsey, and those representing a community or a voluntary group. And those included Ramsey Town Council, children and young people, bus organisers in Ramsey, education sector, and Ramsey Baptist Church. We asked people if they agreed with the proposed conditions for the PSPO, in which 301 strongly agreed, 17 agreed. We had one person disagree and 2 strongly disagree. We then asked why people disagreed with the conditions, and in the responses which are outlined in the report, in summary, those were people wish for the area to be extended, and also hesitations around displacing the issue elsewhere in Ramsey. Another point as well that people have made in their comments was apprehension about whether the police will enforce it due to a lack of police presence in Ramsey. There was also another consultation in Ramsey running at the same time in relation to pedestrianisation of the Great White. That's completely separate. And there were a couple of comments within the consultation that were in relation to that, but obviously not relevant to the PSPO. But they have been included in the report. We then asked if people agree with the location, in which 259 people strongly agreed with the location, 43 agreed, 8 were neutral, 14 disagreed, and 4 strongly disagreed. We then asked people why they disagreed, and again, in summary, we had 39 responses to that, and a lot of people were saying that they agreed, however, they wished for the area to be extended. But as Ash has already stated, that we went on police data, and we went with the area that we felt was most suitable for the PSPO at that time. There was a comment in relation to adding a walkway between the spa and the Mews, which we have now incorporated and is updated on the map. And people's comments also made reference to pushing the problem elsewhere. We then asked if people think that introduction of the PSPO would have a positive or a negative impact. Most respondents said positive, with 263. We had 25 with no impact, 9 with a negative impact, and 31 said that they were unsure. Again, we asked people if they felt it would have a negative impact, then why? And similarly, as we've already said, people felt that the problem may be pushed elsewhere, and also lack of police presence, so it won't make a difference. There was again another comment in relation to the pedestrianisation of the Great White, which is a separate issue. Again, stronger police presence and police enforcement was also a concern for residents. We then asked for people to share any of the thoughts that they had with the PSPO. We got 166 responses to that. Majority of them were positive. Again, same comments came up in terms of police enforcement, which we have obviously been in consultation with the police and they've committed to enforcing the PSPO. Again, people raised about moving the problem elsewhere and extending the location and displacement issues. There were, again, people saying about moving it to another area of police presence and extending the area. Someone mentioned about PSPO wouldn't need to be incorporated because antisocial behaviour laws would already cover the behaviours. However, obviously street drinking isn't necessarily covering that behaviour, so it would allow police more powers to be able to do that. And there was some comments in relation to a lack of trust in professionals being able to enforce it, which obviously, as I said before, the police have committed to doing so. And again, there was another comment in relation to the other consultation that was running at the same time. So that's a summary really of the consultation results that we received. They were kind of the 3 main negative reasons that we received for the PSPO, but predominantly residents and business owners of Ramsey were highly supportive of the PSPO. Is there any questions that you want to ask?
Discussion, so councillor Cotton.
Yeah, so it's not in the consultation of, is it Mill Lane? That seemed to be a running thing through it, that it might be pushed into Mill Lane, or there was a lot of problems in Mill Lane. There was mention of Mill House, is it?
Yeah.
As well. So I did wonder why it hadn't been included in it. Obviously I'm reassured by you saying that it can be extended to that, and I did wonder why it wasn't included, because it did seem to run, and I read all the replies, looked at it again last night. It does seem to run through it an awful lot.
So Mill House is obviously private residence, so that would be included in the public safety protection order anyway. In terms of Mill Park, I had spoken to police about that following the consultation results. They didn't have the statistics to back up the incidents that were occurring in the location. However, we are considering it, and obviously if the issues are displaced into that location, then we will consider adding it in if necessary.
Thank you. And I think you're right. I think until if it goes ahead, I think until people, the public see, residents see that the police are going to be there and there are going to be follow-ups, only then will they be reassured.
Yeah.
I'm afraid it's a bit like you do the evictions.
Yeah, yeah.
But thank you for clearing that up.
Sure.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment on firstly, let me apologise for arriving late to the meeting. All the car parks have been sort of full at the moment, which is good. It's good to see that the market is so successful. I wish St Leah's car parks would be full of market. My apologies being made. With regards to the comments in the consultation about some doubt that the PSPO would be useful, I think we're going to hear in the next paper that there are always doubts that these things are going to be useful, but actually you will see in the next paper that they are useful and they do result in a significant decline in antisocial behaviour. So I think with all these things, grateful to the police for supporting these, because we'd use more of these if we had better support from the police, but in St Leah's and in Ramsey we've had great support from the police who are critical to this. And I think that to review all these from time to time, as we do with the next paper, and so that we can make sure that they're being effective. I understand scepticism, but I think that they really are useful tools, and they're the biggest tools that we have available as well. I also want to thank Ashley and his team for the hard work they've put in door knocking and making sure we do get a good response to the consultation as well. So it does have to support the community, and it's a big down to Ashley's team.
Thank you. Other councillors' questions, comments? Councillor Cadbury.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I think it's good that the police is supporting this, and I think we are all in good standing here. The public will be protected. I'm on 6 where it says if you disagree with the case before locations. This is why this below. And you can say it. So it's here area where it is a private one.
It has been reviewed and we've amended that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Cole.
Yes, Chair, the only thing that I can say, I cross over the road from the library to the B&M store probably once a week. And although they don't frighten me too much, they would scare young mums with babies, and they've got dogs, and these dogs, whilst they're not rottweilers, but they're snappy and they dive, and then they're yanking them back and saying, they're sharing, and it's not very pleasant at all. And, I would have thought the police could have with my other, they should have prospered passionate alarm and distress without this PSPO, to be honest with you. But I don't know how long that lasts. I should do. It's 13 years since I did that, so I can't remember how long that lasts. So perhaps this is better than it last 3 years.
I can respond to some of that, Councillor Clark. For the dog issue, we already have in place a public space protection order for dog control, which does come with application, and our team do get reports of those groups that you're referring to. We've taken action in the past in one of those dog owners. So I'd encourage if anyone does experience dog control issues, even if the dog's got off lead but it's acting aggressive and causing a lot of stress, then report it to the community action team and they would 100% look into it and enforce it. Yeah, that's what I would say on that. Definitely.
But just to move on to the one about you send it somewhere else. I was told early on that the people from St Ives and Woolboys were doing it. They're not Romsey people who are doing it, but I haven't got evidence to support that.
Any other questions? Councillor Cole.
Question, but it is a comment that follows up what Councillor Goss was saying, is that it's really important to remember where the school is situated and where the housing estate is situated. Is a walk through that area for children at secondary school. You know, they're still vulnerable, so I think it's very important as well to take that into consideration because children are vulnerable. And I know of one child that was approached and not very pleasantly was sensible. They quite frightened them, so it was so there is good supportive evidence for this to be legal.
Yeah, and there's quite a few references in the comments in the consultation about young people being frightened, so that reiterates what you're saying.
Yes,
thank you. I think obviously because there's going to be police presence, whereas before anybody thought, well, who do I complain to? What can I do? But if there's police there, I can go straight to the police can act on their behalf straight away. And that will give everybody confidence because a lot of people think, well, there's no point in doing it because they seem to run the town, they're doing what they like, and there's no retribution, there's nobody in authority who can stop this. But obviously, police presence for the first month, as you said, that would be fantastic because they can approach an officer and say, we've been intimidated or the dogs or whatever. They've got that presence of the police there that can make all the difference to their confidence to approach the police and complain. Whereas before, they could have noticed that there was the wolf the amount of people going in to shops and everything was probably dramatic when this is happening. So now they feel more confident to go into the town. So I think that the idea of the police being there for that whole month, I hope it's longer, but will make a hell of a lot of difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Councillor
Sorry
Gordon.
about that. I was just thinking if obviously we vote for it, how will residents know that this is in place?
We will signpost it in the area and we'll also publish it on social media. So we will create signs similar to the Amesbury PSPO with details of the conditions in the location and sanctions that you may receive if you're in breach of the PSPO.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions for me. On the Great Wall, we have obviously as I say, alcohol, particularly Joyce saying the pub, which is in the middle of the red light, and just to check there's no conflict with partner signal, Norway and PSPO in place.
No. So anything over their boundary as such, where there is open vessels, obviously someone would be in breach of the PSPO, but if they're complying with the conditions of their licence, then there wouldn't be no.
You just notice the actual high street, mentioned the actual high street is ridiculous, so the Great Rush, the Sound is actually not.
Yeah.
I suppose the only other concern might be in the big picture, the concentration of police presence here, or whether, and obviously special police and all else really, but is there going to be an impact on the wider policing picture over the ocean as part of the obviously it sounds like it's going to be quite a lot of into this space online. So it's not any other points, questions, councillors? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the resolutions then. So we have 4 recommendations on the agenda papers. Are we taking them this or those?
We're going to take them as is, which is going to amend the first one to include for a period of 3 years.
Okay, so you take the vote on the amendment first.
We can just take them as is, but with the amendment for, as the amendment have them.
Okay, thank you. So we are being asked to recommend the 4 points which I'll read out. First one, approve the proposed PSPO for Ramsey for a period of 3 years. Secondly, consider and approve the proposed boundary of the order. Thirdly, consider and approve the proposed prohibitions. And fourthly, to delegate authority to the community service manager to make minor amendments or variations to the conditions and scope of the PSPO. So, Mrs. I please see your votes. All those in favour of this recommendations? So, okay, that's unanimous apart from Thank you. Okay, councillors, so that concludes this agenda item. So moving on then to item 4, which is review of the public spaces protection order for Amesbury.
There you go. So this one was following the last committee on this. Well, it was a special committee, wasn't it, on the 27th of June, where the committee approved the proposed public space protection order for Amesbury. There was an additional recommendation for there to be an update at the next committee meeting. So I've just got a bit of an update here, but in a nutshell, it's been pretty successful, which is good to see. So following the last LMP on the 27th of June, we had the PSPO signed into effect on the 17th of July. And on the same day it was signed into effect, we, HDC's community action team and the police's neighbourhood policing team for St Leo's went out to the location to firstly put signs up around the boundary of the public space protection order on the lampposts, and to also canvass the location, inform members of the public that it's now in place, and to notify any offenders of the public space protection order that they were now in breach of the new conditions. We had some pretty good engagements, both with residents and with potential offenders. And one particular offender who was known to be a bit of a magnet for problems in the area was quite thoroughly warned by both the community action team and the police. and given a short period of time to make arrangements to cease the behaviour, essentially. Shortly after that, the CCTV was put into place at the location, which is located at the end of Berkeley Street by the roundabout, and overlooks the main congregation of the Proms at the time, which was on the church outside, the wall outside the church. Sorry. The targeted response from the police has been very proactive. They've had 2 separate policing teams go out to the location to police it. They've had the neighbourhood policing team for St Beers, but also a specific antisocial behaviour team that target hotspot locations. They've also been out to both proactively patrol and to responsibly react to reports of incidents, which thankfully have been reducing in nature. After the initial warning that was issued by police and community action team, we came back just a few days later to make sure that the conditions were being adhered to. So then on the 22nd of July, we found that person who had been warned was still engaged in said breaches of the order. So it was said with no uncertain terms, if he's still here now, he'll be arrested and prosecuted for the offences. He left within the hour and hasn't been back since. And since then, the incidents at the location have dwindled significantly, as we'll see from some of the details of the police reports, to the point where, although there's always going to be an element of offending behaviour in any location, compared to what we were seeing previously in terms of the street drinking and the various other problems, it's night and day difference. What's also worth noting is the general public engagement that's been occurring between HDC, the police, and the residents at the location. On the 20th of August, representatives from the council, the police, and including councillors Ferguson and councillor Taylor, joined the neighbourhood policing team to engage with residents groups in Amesbury to hear some of their concerns on where they need to report things. There's a little bit of confusion on do I report to the police or report to the council, and to give them some reassurance. Housing and the community action team were there to represent HDC's officers, and my gather, I wasn't personally there, but my gather it was a useful engagement. There's in the report, it details the list of incidents from the police. There's 5 reports of crimes or incidents since the public space protection order has been put in place, but only one of them really is linked to the previous behaviours. You have stuff here such as non-dwelling burglary, vehicle nuisance, reports of drug dealing, a person acting suspiciously, and street drinking. So, so that was between July and September, end of September. So during the summer months, where typically you'd expect street drinking to be worse, that is where we typically see in most locations. So I think we got the public space protection order right at the perfect time when the weather was the best and you'd expect to see people out and about drinking, put it in and enforce it straight away, and the behaviours stopped occurring. Again, in the report, it goes into some of the legal implications which I've already overviewed in the previous reports. I won't go towards the end of there if you'd like to see them. And as for resource implications, I've just mentioned there the continued commitment to the project. We've still got another essentially 3 years, best part 3 years left on the order. We're still committing to pay for the CCTV camera for the remainder of 6 months. So we've got probably about halfway through that funding. If we need to, we'll extend it. If not, we'll probably stop hunting the camera and then revisit it if we need to. We, as far as we're concerned, it's been successful, so we will continue it for the remainder of the 3 years, go out to consultation at the end, and if we feel the need to extend it, if not, we will probably leave it there.
Thank you, Josh. Any questions for officers on the Amesbury PSPO, councillors?
Just one observation. I go over there, I've got electric bike, so I like to go around, and you'd think it was a hotbed of problems. I don't see anything. Obviously, I'm really pleased about that, but yeah, you'd think, oh, this is awful for the population there. Unfortunately, I haven't seen any problems. there was tents there in the church and there was people walking about, but I didn't hear anything. But obviously, I'm just hoping it was the police presence that you were talking about really put a stamp on it and they dispersed them. So, yeah, probably I can shop that now. I can't walk all the way around to my bike. But, yes, probably walk around and have a look at it.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, I think this is good. I thought it was a very good piece of work that's been done here, and well done to everybody. I think it also gives their message to people who are going to act in an antisocial behaviour way. The HDC and the police will act upon it and put these orders in place. So I thought it was a very good piece of work. Well done, everyone.
Yes, Terry.
Yeah, I paid the local visitor visit middle of September, asking for their opinion, and they were all extremely grateful. What has been put in place with the cooperation of the police has worked, and the number of incidents that have now occurring have gone from quite a few to one or two residents have said, well, it's great, it's worked, there are no problems. So the cooperation between the council and the police, we've cleared the system up at the moment. Whether it returns remains to be seen.
Okay, so you give it a Councillor Ferguson.
So, Chair, I've had Councillor Taylor and myself have had a number of meetings. I think we've had 3 separate meetings with representatives. Last week, the one that Ashley described. And I think it's fair to say that the concerns of the residents are absolutely legitimate. You know, it's an unfortunate situation. Nobody wants temporary accommodation in a hotel. You know, they want houses next to a hotel, which we tend to temporary accommodation. And unfortunately, those factors of modern life. We would prefer not to have to use those places, but they're better having people sleeping rough on streets. And and this council is committed to minimising the amount of time that people spend in these facilities, because I think if you look inside them, they're better than being rough sleeping, but they're not enormously better than this. And so there have been some reoccurring issues over many years. I think that group of residents have been incredibly reasonable with us, because we have a dual role here, is that also we are placing some of the people who were formerly homeless in those hospitals as well. So we're both the solution to the problem, and also we're a customer of that facility. And so we've been working all the angles, including working with the people who own the hotel or the Nagshead Hotel, to make sure that they hold their clientele to higher standards. But this has, we've had a series of meetings. People have been, I think at the last meeting it was very obvious that the situation has improved, and my inbox is certainly a lot emptier than it used to be. But we will continue meeting with those residents. Another meeting in the calendar, I think, for this month or next month, and we'll hear from them face to face, because quite often, because the clientele changes so often in these places, they can get cyclical behaviour anyway. It could be that just we've been for a lucky spell where we've got a better cohort of guests in there who have fewer problems. So we have to keep an eye on it. I think having this in place for 3 years is completely appropriate. But from my point of view, this is an incredibly successful measure and great work by Ashley and the team.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor questions or comments on this agenda item? No. In which case, we thank you very much for the report, which we've noted, and we'll move on to the next item 5, which is the delegation of the public space protection orders to officers. And which is Claudia, that one.
Claudia's said apologies, not available. So I'll be sending this on Claudia's behalf. We'll probably have to rely on democratic services a little bit for the wording of recommendations. There was some amendments to the recommendations that Claudia wrote. So I didn't wrap my head around so correct me if I'm wrong, but we're very critical. But in some, to give a really brief summary, the proposal from Claudia is to delegate the approval of new public spaces protection order to the community services manager. Within after consultation with the usual people, so any involved parties, executive councillor, and director for the area. The main reason for it is really quite simply just in the interest of expediency. One of the things that we learned from the Amesbury Public Spaces Protection Order is that at times there's a need to act really quickly to resolve problems that are occurring antisocial behaviour. And quite frankly, it's difficult to at times wait until the next licensing and protection committee to meet before putting the order in place. We've been really lucky with the Ramsey one that the behaviours have occurred, the report has occurred relatively close to when the next committee was meeting anyway. But in theory, if we wanted to put another public space protection order in place, we wouldn't necessarily want to wait till January, and it might not be convenient to have a special meeting for it. So the report goes into the details of recommending that the behaviours are the power is delegated to the community services manager to approve the public space protection order after consultation. It is in line with the statutory guidance for the Antisocial Behaviour Crime and Policing Act. The guidance is statutory guidance is really clear that consultation needs to take place with interested parties, which is quite recommended, with the chief of police and the police and crime division. So of course we'll make sure we meet those statutory requirements within the legislation as part of that delegation anyway. The recommendations are to approve the request to delegate authorities to community service manager following consultations, support or reject applications for public space protection orders. To delegate authority to the community service manager following consultation to vary the prohibitions contained in the PSPO, and to delegate authority to the community service manager to following consultation have the option to approve the extension of the PSPO after the initial 3-year period if deemed necessary. I think that's it in a nutshell, really. But
So the report outlines, so if you're reminded to grant the delegation, the report outlines a process that would be undertaken, which PSPO would be implemented, which is set out at 4.1. The wording of the proposed delegation is set out at 5.2 of the report, and that's where, having spoken with the Deputy Monitoring Officer, we're suggesting a proposed change. The wording of the delegation wouldn't normally be given to a whole committee and interested parties. A delegation would normally be given to a senior officer after consultation with an executive councillor at the chair of the licensing committee. So we, after speaking with the Deputy Monitoring Officer, the Licensing and Protection Committee as a whole would be consulted as part of the process. But when the community services manager came to take the final decision at the end of that process, it would be proposed that the delegation would be undertaken, would be agreed in consultation with the relevant executive councillor and the chair of the Licensing and Protection Committee, as opposed to the whole of the committee itself.
So I mean, I'm not going to vote on this because I think as the executive portfolio holder, it's for you to make this choice. But I think it's a prudent choice because I think the last time we sat in this room when we were doing the PSPO for Amesbury, which we just heard about, having to call special meetings doesn't seem a very good use of our time. We would never take one of these decisions without at least reference to local members, but as many of this committee as possible. So I think it's only, and of course we want to discuss those PSPOs going forward and review them in this committee. So I'd like to keep you all involved as much as possible, but I think they're in extremis when we have to do these things quickly. I think it makes sense to delegate it.
Thank you. Other councillors, any questions? Councillor Chisholm.
Yes, I'm very happy to support it, Chairman, and of course it needs to be reported to the next meeting of the committee. So
it would be proposed that it would be delegated. Obviously, you'll all be consulted as part of the process for the consulting PSPO, but the delegation would be to the community services manager in consultation with the relevant executive councillor and the chair of the Licensing and Protection Committee.
So does that mean there would be an opportunity for the councils on committee to liaise with having visibility of the
Yes, certainly. I mean, the process is suggesting that as part of the consultation, it be circulated to all members of the Licensing and Protection Committee, so that then they can feed into you.
So we will have visibility of the it's just a meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillors all reasonably have perhaps suggestion, positive feedback. That's great. Any other questions at all? If not, we'll move to the recommendations then. Looking at recommendations, the committee is requested to, number one, approve the request to delegate authority to the Community Services Manager to following two, following consultation, support or reject applications for public space protection orders. Number two, delegate authority to the Community Services Manager to, following consultation, vary prohibitions contained within the PSPO. And number three, delegate authority to the Community Services Manager to, following consultation, have the option to approve the extension of the PSPO after the initial 3-year period, where it suggests that that is necessary. And I see all those in favour of the three recommendations, please.
Who's staying, Chair? Chair, before we move on, could I ask your indulgence? He won't like this, but Ashley, who's presented these three papers excellently and led our community safety team, for how many years, Ashley, have you been?
Well, I've worked with the team since May 2020. I've been the team leader for about 18 months.
Okay, and so unfortunately Ashley is leaving us for a different district council. So I'm happy that he's staying within Cambridgeshire. Very sad that he's leaving. I tell everybody that my favourite day ever as a councillor is when I went out with Ashley in the van. We went around the Norfolk district, sticking on stickers about dog poo, looking at abandoned cars, and looking and investigating flights as well, which is really exciting. It's the closest I've ever felt to being like a proper policeman, going around with Ashley as well. And so I learned so much about the council that day, about my portfolio, and I think Ashley's done a fantastic job in all of it. He did give me my best day. He also made me go out with the team inspecting rubbish bins at the High Street, commercial waste, including my favourite restaurant, which we had to give a temporary a notice to. So I haven't been back there since. I haven't been showing my place. That wasn't my best day, actually. But in general, I think you've done a brilliant job. Really sad to lose you. So thank you very much. And you've been fantastic at the committee, sir, as always. Thank you so much.
Can we call that thanks to?
Yes. I respect that. You're all probably agree with many next session. Yeah, sorry to do this. Obviously. Move on. Yeah. Thank you. Moving on then to item 6, which is the monitoring report on the delivery of food law enforcement and health and safety service plans. And this is for Kate.
Thank you. So this is just a report for information on the activities we've been doing in the first 2 quarters of the year. So the 2 service plans were approved in May this year, and so far for the food law enforcement, the main focus has been planned routine inspections. So we've undertaken just under 400 inspections in the first half of the year, which exceeds the level of activity predicted. During this time, we've had 141 new food business registrations, and this basically shows there's been just a continuing flux of food businesses, and that's pretty much in line with what we have every quarter. We undertook 16 compliance checks where revisits were required if the level of food hygiene wasn't what we'd expected at the time of the inspection, and this again is in line with what we'd expect. We've also been continuing work to go through the list of category E businesses. These are the lowest risk ones that have remained overdue for inspection for some time. We've gone through so far 167 premises records to confirm they're still operating, and then if necessary, create an inspection for the officer to undertake in person. We've also digitised our alternative enforcement strategy process for these businesses. So instead of sending out paper questionnaires to them, we're sending out emails with a link to an online form, which means it's a lot quicker for the officers to send out, and it's easier for the business to complete, hopefully. So the first 23 of these were sent out in Q2, and they've got 21 days to complete them, and that's slowly filtering back. If they don't complete them, we're in the process of sending out reminders to. That's quite a big change in process for us from paper. Also in Q2, we had a successful prosecution where a business sadly wasn't maintaining the standards of hygiene and cleanliness expected. The director of the business, which was Sunshine Curry and Kebab Limited, pleaded guilty to 15 food hygiene offences and was fined £2,500, and it was asked to pay £2,718 costs and £1,000 victim surcharge. Some of you words in the press release that went out on this last week. The business is now under new ownership. In this first 2 quarters, we've also found that the requests for rescores have been slightly higher than anticipated. And this really shows that where businesses are getting 5, they're striving to get that because of the good it does their businesses. It shows that they're getting the highest level of they can. And we've also taken part in the UK Health Security Agency sampling study, and in these quarters the topic was unpasteurised and pasteurised milk cheese. So we went to various businesses in the district, and that ranged from supermarkets to delis, took samples of their cheese, sent it off to the lab. We did have a couple of samples where there were some unsatisfactory results, so we've done some additional sampling there to try and find out product or if it's cross-contamination, and then supported the business to ensure that there was no future problems. In terms of health and safety, most of our work has been reactive. We had 21 accidents reported in quarters 1 and 2, and we investigated 9 of those. Investigations take place on a risk-based approach with guidance that comes from the Health and Safety Executive. We also responded to 72 other service requests, but the majority of these were licence and consultations. So if there's a new premises licence or street trading on pavement, we would respond on the element of public safety. We've also issued 18 skin piercing registrations in the quarters, and we're still awaiting the new Health and Care Act, which may create an increase in this workload for us. And since the general election, we're hoping that might come forward, because I think it's I don't know if anybody's seen the news about sort of cosmetic treatments that are widely unregulated, but it's a bit of a free-for-all really out there at the moment. Unless you're actually doing skin piercing, there's a lot of treatments you can undertake without any regulation. So when this comes in, it will be potentially a lot of work for us, but actually it's increasing public safety massively. And the other slight differentiation from what was on our service plan was we had in May, June this year, a request from central government at the time to undertake public reassurance visits to all the funeral directors in the district. So officers visited all 14 of them in June and July, and it was looking at everything from care of the deceased through to how they're selling paid funeral plans. So we basically officers had a guidance document and a checklist they went through, and then this was all fed back to the government. And I think it's all come out of the incident that went on in Hull, and I think they're looking at again wider regulation of that industry at some point in future, which may fall to us. So that's everything we've been up to, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, that's what you've been doing. Very good for that. Always. Councillors have any questions? Bearing in mind you're invited to provide comments on the delivery of the service plans. Councillor Jordan.
Yes, it's good about the prosecution, because again it's sending a clear message out. HDC will prosecute, where they be. There's been a lot of publicity about the schools doors recently in the press. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering how we can reassure residents that the scores on the doors they see in Huntingdonshire are legitimate. Is it a bit of a grey area perhaps? I don't know.
So when my officers go out and do visits, they will generally check that the premises is displaying what it should be. Obviously, I guess problems occur if the business is say a 5 and then has a poor inspection and goes down to a 2. But that's when we'll be doing like a compliance check, and again, officers will check. If we get a few. We've had one recently, which I think is probably on the back of the BBC articles, where a business isn't displaying the correct rating, and that gets passed over to trading standards to actually investigate. But we do keep an eye out as well. The most we can do, we put it in, I think, the town and parish newsletter before, is just promoting that food hygiene ratings website, because that's where people can check the current ratings, and if they do see figures then that are wrong, to report to trading standards.
Okay, I think it's very reassuring.
Yeah.
I agree what you say about cosmetic. It's a very grey area at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, there's been quite a bit about that in the press.
Yes, it has. Thank you. Otherwise, we'll be
Any other comments, questions, councillors on this agenda item?
Chair, just to say that having enjoyed going out with Ashley, I'm not volunteering to visit funeral homes. Don't put me down. Of course. Clearly.
Maybe we're getting up.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Terry. Sorry, Councillor Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I think it's a great job that is being happening here now on actually showing the businesses that they should comply with the law. And my question is, when you do all these arrests and convicts these other businesses, is there any not publicly, but is there any publicity that happens so that other businesses will know that if they do not follow the said regulations, they will be lost?
So where a business isn't operating to practice the standards that we would require, they do get warning letters after their inspection that says this is what's wrong, this is what you need to do, and if this doesn't happen, this is what could happen. Then obviously the next stage, if things are still right, is the prosecution and then the press. And I think word does get out between businesses. Word gets around, this is what's happened.
Any other questions? No.
Yeah, just to congratulate the team on for the first year of being on this council, the first year and a half, we were listening to the story of how the team were fighting to get back after COVID, and there was a COVID recovery plan which was implemented or specified by the government that we had to stick to as well, and it's fantastic to see. Having got through that, we've recovered now, and we're back to business as usual and delivering excellent service. So thank you very much to the team. Thank you.
I think we're all on that agenda item, so we'll move on to item 7, which is the suspension and revocation of hackney carriage private hire licences of new licensing.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Okay, so it's the normal report that comes forward at every meeting. It's in relation to the suspension, revocation, refusal of hackney carriage. You'll see on item 2.1 the table. We're still getting obviously incidents where we're having to suspend, refuse, revoke licences. I think it's, if you look at the numbers on there, we've kind of got 11 vehicles against 2 drivers. From a vehicle perspective, obviously there is, without going into too much detail, because obviously it's an open meeting, but there certainly are issues arising when they go for their compliance test, their yearly compliance test at the current time at the approved garage. So obviously from our point of view, as you know, in May we brought forward a policy which changed it, which meant that vehicles over a certain age had to have a 6-month compliance test. I think that's justification that we needed to bring that in. So I think that will be interesting to see how those figures either increase or decrease as we start to move forward and that 6-month period hits us, which won't be until the end of the year, so sort of beginning of next year. So I think that's quite useful. Obviously, if anybody's got any questions in relation to individual instance on this, I'm happy to take that outside the meeting, because obviously I'm a bit limited on what I can discuss in the meeting. Section 3 of the report, you'll see this time that's a new item that I've added, and it's in relation to penalty points. As I say, they was included in the policy that we brought forward in May, and I thought it was a good way that each time I'll bring forward to you how many penalty points we've issued, and sort of, in relation to what reason. Just again, give you an idea that, we are using them, the team are using them, as another way of disposing with incidents. So it's another, as we call it, a tool in our toolkit to deal accordingly. So we can see there obviously there's drivers that have been issued and vehicle owners as well. So again, and what this will allow us to do is build up a picture. So if we can see that there's, let's say, constantly drivers are failing to notify us of incidents, convictions, then we can obviously do some work on that social media and obviously out to our drivers and inform them of that. So they're not, you know, kind of can't say, oh, wasn't aware, you know, we can publicise that. So that's obviously, and hopefully you're happy if I leave that in the report going forward. And then at section 4, that's obviously any drivers that we've refused. We've currently got one, was obviously scheduled for court in November. That's now been delayed until January. So that was basically a new driver. We refused due to convictions in relation to the DBS. They've appealed that decision. Obviously, we're now down to the magistrate court to hear that, and obviously I'll keep you updated once we get the results of that. So yeah. But yeah, happy to take it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Questions on this agenda item, councillors? Questions? Okay, thank you. So thank you for your report, which you've noted, and it's very useful. Moving on then to item 8, which is the Licensing and Protection Subcommittee's report, to summary of the meetings of the Licensing and Protection Subcommittee since the last meeting of the committee.
It's just the usual report for noting to outline the meetings of the Licensing and Protection Subcommittee, which have been held since the last meeting. There's only been one meeting, and that's outlined in the report.
Any questions, comments on that? With that, received. Thank you. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the meeting. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Okay, we're now going to move straight on to the licensing committee meeting. So, firstly, can I take call of instructions for this meeting?
Yep, can I present apologies for Councillor Costello and Councillor Butel?
Thank you. Item 1, minutes of the meeting held on 25th of January and 22nd of May 2024. You have to, that as a correct record of meetings? Yes, happy? Yes. Thank you. Item 2, members' interests. Received from members declarations as to disposable pecuniary, other registrable and non-registrable interests in relation to any agenda item. Do we have any members' interests to declare this afternoon? No, please declare. Thank you. Item 3, the Gambling Act 2005, Statement of Principles 2024. Consider a report on the proposed Gambling Act Statement of Principles for 2025 to 28, following the public consultation, and to recommend its approval to Council.
Lovely. Thank you, Chair. So this report is in relation to the draft Statement of Principles policy for Gambling Act. It's a statutory policy which we have to produce every 3 years. Unfortunately, there's very, very little change to the current policy, and that's due to the fact there's been no update from the Gambling Act. There was supposed to be what they referred to as the white paper, but due to obviously changing government, that got delayed. So we're expecting that possibly sometime next year. So although in front of you I'm asking you to approve obviously the draft policy for 3 years, it may come before you again next year. Depends obviously what comes forward from government. But as I say, it's a statutory policy that we have to produce. The current policy runs out on the 31st of January 2025. We have to have this in readiness to produce by the 3rd of January. So obviously providing it's approved today, it will go forward to Council on the 11th of December. The same readiness for us to produce 3rd of January. Gives us 4 weeks ready for it to come into effect on the 31st of January 2025. And that will see us through till 2028 unless there's anything else. As I say, the Appendix A is the draft report. Is the draft policy. There is very minimal changes. It's just the date pretty much that's changed in there. and a couple of spelling errors that was in the previous one, so we've just amended that. Consultation on this particular one went out for 4 weeks. It's the minimum amount we could go out for. Obviously, if there was some major changes, we would go out for 12 weeks, but that wasn't required. So that went out, and obviously we've not had any feedback on that. But again, it was pushed out. It was pushed out on our website, etc. So yeah, happy to take any questions. Obviously, recommendation is obviously to ideally approve the draft policy. With that, you want to take any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. Councillor, so any questions for Michelle on this item? Councillor Garland.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was a very good report, Michelle, but I think there's only one slight mistake. If you look at the plan on page 43.
Of the policy?
Yeah, page 53 of 66. If I'm reading it right, you've moved Hale Western the wrong side of the A1.
It was up there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But that's me just being very picky.
No, not at all. They're laughing because my geography is not the greatest. If somebody said, "Am I going north or south?" I am not very good at that.
It's a very good report. You know, I was looking at it now. That was one thing that stuck out to me.
No,
that's good because
thank you very much. We will get that amended. Thank you.
Well spotted, Councillor Garland. Councillor Jordan.
No, it is a report. It was very easy to read, so I read it for, because I feel like this is going to be very reading, so I've got my mags either. And my gin and tonic.
And a biscuit,
oh, definitely biscuit. But it was easy to read. It is good. My only thing is, these addresses are, because it's going to go, it'll be in the public domain, won't it? So these addresses are right, aren't they? Because it's the fire station, Huntingdon Fire Station, Hartford Road, and I wondered if they were still there. Well, they're all removed.
That's wrong.
Right, so I picked that one up, and I also wondered about.
We normally just have email addresses.
Oh, you just put the email address.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. It was just perhaps I'm being a bit like. I cancelled the garden.
We normally remove the head. I mean, the head office address obviously is known to everyone, but we normally remove that and just put in the email addresses nowadays.
That is probably better because I can imagine that people would perhaps pick up that one.
Yeah,
and if there's another one, Castle Shy Hall, I don't know if that's it was Child Protection Services. I just want, and it is very
unreal, yeah.
That's no longer. I know that's, but it's in the public domain. I just think information should be correct. You know?
Absolutely, no, that's the point. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other than that, Michelle, thank you.
No worries, no worries. It's coming back from my dog being see.
Mummy wants to get a car.
Absolutely, that's what mine was at one day when I picked the map up and it was upside down. It might be worth sending it right on.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Michelle. Sorry, Councillor Clark and Councillor Gallagher. Discussing something else? Did you have to discover any other?
No. I'm down your book. As Councillor says, he would know why I would pick that up.
Exactly. Yes, we will go there. Thank you. Okay. Right. No other questions, comments on the report? Okay. In which case, we'll move to the recommendations. So, the licensing committee is recommended to consider the draft policy document during the public consultation and approve the Gambling Act Statement of Principles Policy 2025 to 2028. Delegate authority to the Community Services Manager to make minor amendments to the policy and to recommend that the Statement of Principles be referred to Council for approval. Let's see all those in favour of those recommendations, please. Unanimous. Someone be presenting that to council for council meeting tonight. Thank you. That concludes the business of the licensing committee.
It's just a subcommittee report.
Sorry, subcommittee. What is that? Sorry, just to cover item 4, the licensing subcommittee's report on that.
Yeah, this is just really denoting the list of meetings of the subcommittee which have been held since the last meeting, noting really any outcomes.
Yeah, thank you. Any councillors, any questions on the report? Any of those who are not on the subcommittee, any questions at all? No. No, in which case that's fine. Thank you very much. So in the case I shall declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.